A couple weeks ago, Sabrina Carpenter released a new album, and I've been really loving it every time that I've listened to it. I loved it on the first listen, and I just keep enjoying it more every single time. So I wanted to do some kind of production breakdown where I do something in the style of her new album, Short and Sweet. However, every song is so different, so I actually let our Instagram audience just kind of vote on a poll, and it was overwhelming that people wanted to see something in the style of Taste. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. I'm going to show you how to produce a song like Taste, show you how to make guitar tones, mix drums, layer vocals, do all of that really cool stuff. So we're going to dive in and check all of that out in 1 second. But before we do, my name is Austin. You're watching Make Pop Music. If you like this, make sure that you subscribe because we do these kind of videos every single Friday. And before I jump in, I just want to say last week the giveaway went so well. We had so many people enter. So if you want to be entered to win any of our sample packs, preset packs, or MIDI packs from our website, all you have to do is leave a comment down below. I'll be picking a winner on Monday, September 16th. So if you comment anytime between now and then, you're automatically entered. I'll pick one person at random, and then I'll just reply to your comment, tell you that you won. You can DM us on Instagram or email us, and I can give you whatever pack that you want from our website completely for free. So go ahead and enter just by commenting. Also, I promise, last thing before we hop into the tutorial, all of the guitar tones that we're going to make in this tutorial will be using the Corey Wong amp from Neural DSP. Not a sponsor, paid for it with my own money, yada, 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 the whole shtick. However, if you want these presets for free, I'm going to make a folder where you can download them. That will be in the description below. So if you want some Taste-inspired presets for the Corey Wong amp, they're all yours. The first thing that I want to do is start with some kind of guitar. This is actually going to be 90% guitar today. There's not going to be very much synth. So I'm going to track up a guitar. I'm going to be using a Fender Strat for pretty much everything, I think. And I just want some kind of like palm muted, power chord-esque melody. So I'm gonna get that tracked in and then we can go over it. Here's our guitar that we're starting with. It's just a really simple riff played on a Fender. Two really important parts of this are to, number one, get those little like string wax in because there's not going to be much percussion happening in the verse. And number two is just add in some of those extra little flourishes and riffs. And then for the actual tone on this, I'm just using the Corey Wong amp from Neural DSP. Let's just go through step by step. We have some compression. We have some overdrive. Drive is pretty high. Tone is pretty low. We kind of want that like low, fuzzy, kind of filtered out tone. For the actual head and cab, we're using the third selection on here. We have the bright button engaged. Everything's kind of sitting in the middle, and then master's just pinned up. For the EQ, we're not really doing anything crazy. We're just controlling some of the lows and low mids. And then for the effects, we have quite a bit of chorus. Rate is in the middle. Mix is at like 2 o'clock. Width is in the middle. And then we have just a hair of reverb. Here's what that sounds like. So we have that nice kind of blown out cab sound. I just want to control some of those lows and low mids. So I'm doing some EQ right here, doing a little bit of extra dynamic EQ, and then just boosting some of these high mids to kind of pull that guitar forward just a hair. Then we do the same thing on the other side, tracked a whole separate time, same tone. Let's go ahead and add in a little bit of like a hi-hat just to give us some kind of rhythm and percussion, similar to Taste. For the drums on this, I'm just using the Gojira kit from Mixwave. Funny enough, this is a rock and metal kit. I just feel like it really lends itself to have like this really woody snare. The kick works really well. It's got a ton of cymbal options. So we're going to be using that. I'll show you some mixing on that a little bit later. But right now, we just have a hi-hat. We're basically just playing the foot pedal of the hi-hat. The next thing is just kind of like starting to build out a pre-chorus. That's really all that's going to happen in a verse. For the pre-chorus, I want some clean guitars and maybe a couple extra drum hits. For the guitar, I'm just playing this on the Strat again. It's a really clean DI. Just kind of doing a call and response. So we have the left side panned 90%, the right side panned 90%. Just doing these really nice kind of slidey leads. And then in terms of the actual tones on this, both sides are getting similar treatments. We have the Corey Wong once again. No overdrive this time, just some compression. We have the second amp actually. We don't even have bright engaged. We're going for kind of a filtered, almost lo-fi-esque, super chorusy tone. And so when I go over here, you're going to see that we have the chorus at 100%. The rate is a bit higher and the width is much higher. We also have a lot more reverb, and this is going to give us that kind of like filtered out, almost like swimming, super ambient guitar. So that's what we're doing just to kind of build the pre-chorus up. For the drums, we're just doing a little kick hit on the one, and then we have a fill that will go into what's going to be a chorus. Then we have this. Then we'll go into a chorus. Is there anything else that I want to add right now? Maybe like a sub bass under this pre-chorus. Let's go ahead and do something like that. For the bass, I'm just using Serum. I'm just using it to create a really nice sine wave for the low end. And then I have a second oscillator that's doing a saw wave, and it's filtered out with a little bit of width just to almost give us like a respace effect. So there's something happening on the sides, but that sub is really right down the middle. And then other than that, I just have the pitch bend right here at 12. So I can actually pitch it down at the end. You can kind of hear that little pitch down. And then let's go ahead and add in like a vocal chop. There's one of those in Taste that's kind of right behind the pre-chorus. For the vocal chop, it's literally just me singing a little melody, and then we have a bunch of effects. We have some auto tune, doing a bunch of tuning, and some 4-mint shift. Then we have some tape by Baby Audio, just adding quite a bit of saturation. We can drive it hard. We've got some filtering with Pro Q, just a high pass, low pass, very simple. Then we have some reverb and delay with Echo Boy and Crystalline. Echo Boy is by Sound Toys, Crystalline is by Baby Audio. We're just doing a quarter note ping pong on the space echo effect, and then down here we just have the spacey, super wet, 50-50 dry and wet mix right here. Kind of a huge reverb. We're just using Pan Man by Sound Toys as well, just to give us almost like a rotary effect to kind of send that vocal around. And then the last thing is just a little bit more filtering. Put all of that together. Let's like add in some swells just so it builds tension. Here we go. Let's move that back here. Then we will go into a chorus. For the chorus, I'm going to start with drums. Let's talk about the drum pattern first, and then I want to go into drum mixing for quite a minute, actually. So it just starts with 2 crash hits on the downbeat, and then we're going into like an 8th note hi-hat, just kick and snare, pretty simple. We're adding in some fills just because this does have live track drums on Taste. So I wanted to add, you know, little notes here and there that like a drummer would throw in. Here's what it sounds like. But there is a lot of processing happening on here. So if I open up this kit, right now what you can do is like multi-out everything. So I have a channel for my kick, my snare, my toms, my overheads, my rooms, just like if I was mixing a live track drum kit. And so I've gone in here, some things, you know, there's like a little bit of maybe tuning on, some things there might be a little bit of like a split between top mic, bottom mic, overhead, and rooms. So we're doing a little bit of processing in here, nothing too wild. Where it really gets crazy is on these individual tracks, right? So if we go to this kick, here's what the kick sounds like straight out of the Gojira kit. Super nice, super punchy, but I wanted a kind of different texture, so I added this Corniff pawn shop compressor. Slow attack, slow release, threshold and ratio are giving it quite a bit of compression. And we're at 100% wet. We're using the steel and the 5751. Nice little preset. Just kind of gives me that extra punch and that body that I'm looking for. And then I'm just scooping some of these mids to kind of get the kick to be a little bit less apparent in the mix, but I can actually push it up and make it punch a little bit harder. So I want it to be super snappy, super punchy, but I don't necessarily need all that mid kind of cluttering up my mix. To clean it up even more, I'm going to add a gate just to kind of shorten up the kind of sustain of that kick. Then we're going to add knock just to do a little bit of clipping, really make this thing knock. And versus the dry. Just kind of has a fluffier, warmer kick sound. I thought that it fit the reference a little bit better. For the snare, here's what it sounds like dry. Super nice woody snare. I'm adding the pawn shop compressor again on snare smash, slow attack, slow release. For this one, I'm only using it at like 11% wet, and we're using the iron transformer. Just giving us a little bit of extra compression and saturation. Again, we're gating it just to clean it up. We're going to have room mics later that'll add a lot of that width and tail, so I don't need that dry mic to be super ringy. I just kind of want a short, snappy wood snare. After that, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of EQ, boost the fundamental right here, cut out some of these resonances, add a little bit of snap. We're going to add knock to do some clipping, some air, and some punch. Without. You can see we're getting a lot of headroom right here because we're doing some of that, clipping. And that'll kind of let us have that snare really apparent in the mix. If you don't want it to be so clipped, you could always just gain stage it differently and barely touch the clipper, but I'm fine with that. Let's go to the overheads because we're doing some stuff on these as well. Here's raw. I'm adding a little bit of excitement. This pawn shop compressor, basically the only compressor that I use for individual drum tracks normally. It's so great. This is what it's looking like. SSL channel just doing a bit of top end boost. Making everything louder, pushing it to the front. Nothing too wild on that. The room sound, again, pawn shop compressor. And this one actually has a gate. So here's what it sounds like raw. Compressor adds that nice little bit of pumping. And then once we add that C1, just doing some gating. Now we get super snappy drums that still have a lot of room sound, but they're not like tailing super long. They don't take up a ton of space in that mix when they don't need to. The last thing is on the hi-hat mic, I actually just added a little bit of attack and took down the sustain with a transient designer just to make it snap a little more. Feels nice, worked really well for the mix. Everything together. But let's go ahead and add guitars. I think that's pretty much it for the drums. Oh, one thing that I did forget to mention, drum bus. We have a little bit of tape saturation happening right here with Ozone just to give it that kind of like warm, fluffy tape vibe that the Sabrina Carpenter album has. Doing a little bit of MBEQ just to kind of pull some of those high mids forward. When you pull the high mids up, I just find that it kind of brings the drums to the front of the mix just a hair more. Doing a little bit of clipping with gold clip just to make sure that we're not overloading our, mix bus chain, our master bus chain. And that's pretty much it. These drums are fat, they're clipped, they're punchy, they're saturated, and they sound really great once you add everything together. Let's move on to the guitars for the chorus. For the guitar parts, for the main thing that we're doing, we're kind of just playing those chords that we had earlier, but I'm actually playing them on completely open strings, and we're basically just like playing a power chord and just letting the kind of B string and E string ring out. That's what they sound like dry. Let's put some tones on these. So for this one, we're using the Overdrive once again. Super bright tone, less drive this time. Then we move on to the amp. Everything is much more pinned. We have a lot more middle, a lot more treble, and a lot more presence. And then for the chorus, a lot higher mix and a bit higher rate, less width. So that's kind of what we're rocking with in terms of tones. And then again, we're just kind of cleaning everything up with some EQ, controlling mids, controlling low mids. This is all pretty, it really just depends on what's going on in your individual mix. And then on the right side, we have a flanger. So there's no flanger happening on the left side. I just did that on the right just to kind of make them feel a little bit different, add a little bit of that stereo width. And together they sound like this. Super crunchy, super chorusy and modulated, has a really nice vibe. I wanted a little bit of call and response, so we also have these little things happening. Let me go ahead and turn off the chains, just on the backgrounds of everything. And the right side is a little bit louder and a little bit more up front. Again, Corey Wong amp. For this one, we're actually using the tube driver and the overdrive, and it's just giving us this like overly distorted fuzz pedal kind of tone that I really like. We have the bright engaged, everything's pinned. For the chorus, pretty high mix, rate right in the middle, width is at 100%, and we have a little bit more reverb on this. Let's turn off the flanger. Turn on a Flanger by Arturia. This thing is so fire. It's become my like go-to flanger. Sounds like this. And And then on the left side, we have that same thing happening, but we don't have the flanger, and it's a little bit lower in the mix. These are panned about 70% left and right, and the main guitars are 100. So when you play them together, and that's pretty much it. Let's add a bass under this chorus just to kind of give us some low end. For the bass, normally I would live track, but my bass needs new strings right now, so I just did Trillion. We're just using the clean Fender full range rock, very similar to the Fender jazz bass I would have used. And then in terms of progression, we're really just following the chord progression. Taste is a really simple song in terms of like chords and melody, so I kind of wanted to mimic that here, and we're just adding some runs here and there just to give us a little bit of variation. In terms of mixing, Trillion already comes pretty cooked, so I'm not doing a ton. I am sidechaining the bass to the kick just a little bit so that kick can punch extra hard. And then really all I like to do with live style basses is control these kind of like low mid-range resonances around 150, like 250, and then this one just had a weird spot at like 650. But this is basically just going to clean it up so you can push that bass louder in the mix, get more low end, but you don't have all of those kind of, you know, mid-range clutter happening where it can get really cloudy. Then the next thing I have is just some optical style compression using the Apogee 3A without. Just kind of refocusing the bass, putting more emphasis on the kind of, you know, 60 to 120 range and less on the like 150 to 250 range. So that's really all we're doing. When you throw it in, it sounds great. Let's go ahead and move on to this little like 2-bar post-chorus right here. I'm just going to add a clean guitar and a vocal chop under here just to give us something else new. For the clean guitar, I have a left and a right guitar happening, doing some call and response, panned about 70% each. And on the right, we just have this little guy. Then we swap over to the left. In terms of tone, back to the Corey Wong amp, not sponsored or anything. I just use these so much. They're so easy. A little bit of compression. On the clean amp using the bright, we kind of want that like jangly tone, especially with something like a single coil pickup. And then we're not using the chorus this time. We are using a bunch of reverb though. What I'm doing is instead using the Dimension D chorus because this is a much kind of slower like digital chorus. It sounds really, really nice. Doing a little bit of EQ just to clean it up. Same thing on the other side, just kind of mirroring it. And then for a vocal chop, we're using the same exact chain that we had earlier in that pre-chorus, but what we're doing this time around is having something happen on the left when the guitar is on the right, and then having something happen on the right when the guitar is on the left. So just kind of mirroring what the guitar is doing. This song, Taste, the reference, has a lot of things that happen asymmetrically and just adds a little bit of character and taste and pizzazz on each side, so it doesn't just feel like a really static mix. Taste is a pretty simple production, and it's like a, 3 or 4 chord guitar riff. It really happens with like all of these weird little guitar riffs that only happen on one side, all of these little licks that only happen on one side. As we get to vocals, you'll see that like layering is huge, but we're trying to keep it simple. So let's move on to the second verse. I'm going to have drums going through this, so I'll probably do pretty much what we have for the chorus, but we'll simplify it just a little bit. Here's what we're rocking with for drums. So same thing, crash hit, and then we're going to that 8th note hi-hat again. However, I'm closing this one a little bit more, so in the Mixwave plugins, typically, they will have like 4 different versions of a hi-hat, all the way from like all the way closed to all the way open. So we have that. That's like fully closed. I'm using this one for the verse. We're using that for the chorus. So it just allows you to have a little bit of a tighter pocket, and then I'm just changing up some of the fills, but all of that is literally to personal taste. Simplify. Really nothing that interesting happening there. Just doing it what it needs to do really well. Let's go ahead and let's move on. I think we need a bass line for this because guitar is going to be quite different. So we're going to stick on this live bass, and what I'm going to do is maybe simplify the bass line, but change up some of the little flourishes. So here's what I'm doing for the bass. Just kind of simplifying it, making it, you know, really straightforward. And then for guitar, I actually don't want that little palm mute riff that we had earlier. For this, I'm gonna do all ambient guitar, and I wanna track in an acoustic. Let's talk about this spacey guitar first. So again, very similar to the tone that we had earlier. Corey Wong bypassing their chorus, letting everything kind of jangle and sparkle, and we're just using that Dimension D. But for this one, I have a bit of Valhalla Verb on here at 50% wet. I want this super spacey, almost like a pad. And that one's just happening right down the middle. And then we have these left and right guitars that will kind of add a little bit of sauce here and there. And those are just using the same tone from that pre-chorus earlier. So it's that one with the faster chorus. It's a little bit like darker and duller. There's no overdrive happening whatsoever. And I'm basically just doing these little call and responses on the left and the right with that little center channel. The thing that really adds a lot of body to this is a 12-string guitar. So there's a lot of acoustic guitar on Sabrina Carpenter's album, and there's a lot of 12-string guitar, specifically in songs like Juno. I think this one might have one tucked in there. There's another one that has one like pretty tucked in. But if you're not familiar, a 12-string guitar is basically where the lowest 4 strings, so E, A, D, and G, will all have a second string that's an octave higher, and then the highest strings, B and E, will have basically 2 strings of the same exact note. And so when you strum it, you get this extension of it where typically the lowest 4 notes will have an octave up, and then the highest 2 notes will basically have this like doubled chorus effect. So here's what these guitars sound like. Let me turn off the processing. This is just straight out of my mic. It sounds like there's a chorus on them because of the strings that are kind of slightly out of tune and slightly out of phase with each other. For mixing, I'm just scooping out some of the mids and scooping out a bunch of high. They were pretty bright. And then I'm just using the MBSI. I've been using this on acoustic guitars all the time lately, doing a little bit of compression and boosting the mids. When I pop them in the mix, and that's pretty much it. Moving on to the pre-chorus right here, we're gonna keep a similar vibe, but I'm making the drums a little bit busier this time. Here's what we have for the second pre-chorus for drums. So for this time, we're pulling in kicks, we're pulling in toms, we're kind of building it rather than just having it just be that hi-hat. Then we're going into our chorus. For the guitar, I'm pulling out that crunchy riff. All we're doing is ambient. And then we're gonna have that bass in there, that kind of sub bass, but for this time, I'm gonna lengthen it so it's a little bit longer. So what happens in the second pre-chorus is kind of a cool example of when you have something that's super ambient like the guitar, maybe you have a little bit more rhythm in the drum, right? The drum is kind of keeping that rhythm now. Where in the first pre-chorus, the drum wasn't doing much, so we kept that rhythm with the guitar. The bass wasn't fully extended. We had a little bit of swing and pocket, where now this is just so ambient, but it has those tom fills in there to kind of keep the tempo for the listener. Straight into the chorus. The only thing that we're adding to the second chorus is we're adding these little clean guitars right here, left and right. Just to give us something in the background. They're very tucked in the mix. And we're gonna add just a couple synths. It's the first time of the song there's gonna be any synths or keys, but we're gonna do 2 little pads and 1 little bell. For the pads, I literally just want this to have a little bit of extra sustain. We're just using a pad called Offer. This is out of one of our packs called Lush for Serum. Super simple. It's such a cool patch that has so much texture built in that I'm just playing the root chords and it's adding a lot. We're adding a second pad right here using one called Shimmering Surface, also out of our Lush pack. Again, creates a nice little bit of ambience just playing those root notes. And then we have a little bell right here just doing a counter melody. You hear it happen in taste. It's really tucked in though. It's not doing anything too creative. Just adding something there. So now for the second chorus, it feels a little bit bigger, a little bit more ambient, but if you weren't paying attention, you would just be like, oh, we're back to the chorus. Oh, I also have the 12-string guitar happening now too, just to add a little bit of punch. If you don't have a 12-string, you should get one. They are so fun to play, and they add such a weird character to a song. So that's my new thing. Let's move on to vocals. I'm going to drag in some vocals and then kind of go over the arrangement, but I'm going to track them off camera. Let's talk about the vocals. I'll just go kind of section by section. We're keeping it really simple for the verse. So there's a lot of layering in the Sabrina Carpenter album, but for taste, the verse is basically one vocal up the middle. So we have this. This is just a dry vocal. It's a Loughton Audio Eden going into a Rupert Neve Newton channel strip with a little bit of EQ happening, a little bit of the red texture, and then we're going into an AudioScape 76D and then an AudioScape Opto compressor. So we have a pretty full chain coming in. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. That's literally nothing on the vocal whatsoever. So I'm just going to do a little bit of EQ to kind of just tuck some of those low mids, tighten everything up, push the vocal forward just a hair, and then we're going to do a little bit of extra compression and de-essing just to kind of like push it forward, I guess. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's doing some multi-band compression just to kind of like lift everything. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. And then one little de-esser that's like barely touching it. I actually love this de-esser. It's the vocal de-esser from Autotune. And then just a little bit of EQ right here just to do our last little bit of adjustment. And then Autotune. Here's our dry vocal in the mix. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. Just getting those mids out of the way, getting that high mid to kind of come up and cut through a vocal. And then in terms of wet effects, we'll go one by one. So this top one that is like maxed out is actually not doing anything. It's just in my template. But we're using a vocal parallel widening, which we've used a billion times on this channel. But for anybody who might be new, it's essentially just the Roland Dimension D. For this, I'm using setting 2. And then it's 100% wet, stereo's at 100%, default oscillator. Essentially, this is just doing like some chorusing, doubling. Let me show you as we drive it. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. Really cool for just like adding a little bit of space, adding a little bit of sheen. The next thing that we're doing, this one is actually pretty apparent. This is an 1/8 note delay. And sometimes I'll pan these. This one is just right down the middle. So we're in Echo Boy. We have an 1/8 note on the space echo. It's coming right down the middle. If I go into the tweak, you can see that I've lowered the mix. Low cut and high cut aren't doing too much. It's about as simple as you can get for an 1/8 note. Then we're doing some band passing in Pro Q. I like to filter in Echo Boy. A lot of the time I'll still go in with Pro Q and tighten it up. And then I have Vintage Verb at like 18% wet, just so that delay throw isn't super dry and awkward. Sounds like this. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. And it's happening all throughout taste. So I figured I would have it going in this as well. And then for the slapback delay, we've done this one on the channel before. I think I'm doing Echo Boy for this as well. No, I'm using Repeater. So we're just on the CLA-ish tape slap preset, 100% wet. This is what it looks like, 72% on the, or 72 milliseconds on the left, 104 on the right. Doing a little bit of EQ right here. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost... Let me drive it up so you can hear it. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. And then we literally just have the smallest amount of plate reverb in here. And this song doesn't have a lot of like big washy reverbs on the leads. So I kept it pretty simple. We're using Valhalla Verb on a 1.6 plate, which is pretty short for me. Doing a little bit of filtering, a little bit of shelving, and then band passing it here. Yesterday I heard your favorite song. If I boost that one,
Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you.
And that's really it for the vocal for the verse.
Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are.
Just adds a little bit of width, adds a little bit of depth, adds that little slapback that you hear in Taste. It's really nice. We're keeping it really simple. We literally have one vocal all the way through the end of the first pre-chorus.
Fool me once, fool me twice, 'cause I'll still pay the price.
The only other thing we have is this reverse vocal, so I literally have just this.
Bye.
And I'm adding so much Valhalla verb. We're at a 12-second decay. And what I'm doing is just like mixing this all the way up. We're at 100% wet. It just gives you that really cool vocal swell that you hear in Taste.
So goodbye. You played on my.
Then I threw in a little spoken vocal just to be nice and cheeky like Sabrina. Basically no wet effects.
So long, motherfucker.
And yeah, that's it. And then we go into the chorus. Now let's actually talk about like vocal arrangement, because up to that point, there is no arrangement happening. So for the chorus, just to kind of give you a rundown of the mix, it's the same exact thing. I'm just adding RVox to do a little bit of extra compression. I like my chorus vocals to be super compressed if the arrangement's dense, so I can really push them forward in a mix. And then all of the like synths are exactly the same. Levels are a little bit different. That's kind of just a to taste thing. The only things that we're adding is we're adding a quarter note delay, which is just an Echo Boy quarter note stereo delay. This one does have some width to it. On the studio tape setting, it's literally as basic as you could get. And then we have this echo chorus from Outer Space. Who makes this? I don't even know the company that makes this. Audio Thing. It's great. I love this plugin. It's like a space echo, tape echo kind of vibe. And it's just at 100% wet, doing what a tape echo will do. Let me show you that one soloed so you can hear it.
You played on my insecurities. Enough is enough. Tore my heart into many.
And then I have a little bit of tape saturation with Baby Audio's tape. And adding all of those in, you get a lead vocal in the hook that I think is a little bit wetter than the verse, but it's not too crazy.
You played on my insecurities. Enough is enough. Tore my heart into many pieces just to stitch it back up. Now you come around acting sorry, but I don't get.
I could probably dry it up even more, honestly. Like, I don't even know if I need all of that, but in terms of arrangement, let's move on to the dubs over here. So these are much drier. I don't have most of those sends. I like all of my dubs to be kind of dry. And then if I need them to be wet for an effect, I'll just do that as an insert. But they're basically the same. I'm just taking out a little bit more low end and boosting the high mids just so they can cut forward. And I DS these harder.
You played on my insecurities. Enough is enough. Tore my heart into.
So I sang it 2 more times. So I sang it for the lead, sang it for the left, sang it for the right, and then the left and the right dub are panned 100%. Altogether, they sound like this.
You played on my insecurities. Enough is enough. Tore my heart into.
Just gives you a bunch of width. If I took those out, here's what the hook sounds like.
Fucker. You played on my insecurities. Enough.
Let's add them back in.
Fucker. You played on my insecurities. Enough.
And they are vocal lined. They're really tight. I went in and tuned them by hand and then did vocal line. Let's talk about the more interesting part though. This is harmonies, and this is a big thing in the Sabrina Carpenter album is harmony arrangement. So for the first set of harmonies, we have literally as simple of a vocal chain as you could get. 1 EQ, 1 compressor, and then a de-esser, and that's it. And they sound like this.
Enough is enough.
Just kind of doing, like, I don't even know if it's a third or a fifth, but
is enough
a nice little da-da-da-da on top. Then we have a falsetto harmony under here doing something kind of different. That first harmony is panned 90%. The falsetto harmony is panned 100%.
Enough is enough.
So here's what I was talking about earlier, where I wanted these to have a totally different texture. So it's the same chain as the last harmony. However, each of these got a 910 harmonizer on the vocal thickener setting at like 18-20% wet. And then they each got Valhalla Verb at 12% as an insert, just to kind of give them a spacey, washy effect. And when you play them,
enough is enough.
It's almost acting as its own little vocal throw, which was really cool. It kind of took up all the space that I needed. When you play all the vocals,
Is enough, tore my heart into many pieces just to stitch it back up. Now you
And it's really nice to have these punch-ins. It adds moments that people can pay attention a little bit more.
Stitch it back up.
Doing it here.
Don't give a fuck.
And then we come in with a pedal harmony underneath everything.
Don't give a fuck. Better, so much better since I've given you up.
And those are 70% left and right. So at the very end, we have lead vocal dub on the left and right, harmony 1, harmony 2, and then a pedal harmony acting as harmony 3. So we basically have a 4-part vocal here. Here's what it sounds like all together.
'Cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up.
And then we're coming in with a little ad lib at the very, very end, and we're just doing some big throws inside of Vintage Verb. You'll see me automate.
'Cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up.
Pull it back down. And that's just kind of acting as a nice little ad lib that can happen.
'Cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up.
Let's move into verse 2. It's the same thing as verse 1. I just turned it up a couple dB.
I don't know why I would expect you to change. I was stupid and you know all along.
She has the la la la's in taste. I didn't want to copy that directly, so I just did all along. Basically just doing a 3-part harmony.
All along, all along.
Step by step, let's take it. First harmony, or first version.
All along, all along.
Second. Third.
All along, all along.
All together.
All along, all along.
Those nice kind of R&B, kind of soul-esque harmonies are really, really nice for adding that texture. Something's used all over the Sabrina Carpenter album. Other than that, we're keeping it really simple. The only area that we add harmonies is for the last line of the verse, just to kind of punch in a little bit of excitement.
You led me to your light to smother my flame. Ash me out and next thing I know you're gone.
Right there on Ash Me Out and Next Thing I Knew You're Gone.
Ash me out and next thing I know you're gone.
So we have dubs and then we have the 2 harmonies. Then we go into the pre-chorus. This pre-chorus is triple track just to add a little bit of width. It's spacier in terms of the arrangement. So we're mimicking that with vocals.
Fool me once, fool me twice, 'cause I'll still pay the price, and it's cost me.
And then we're just doing 1 harmony to lead that in.
Fool me once, fool me twice, 'cause I'll still pay the price.
And letting that twice kind of trail off like a little pad. And then that is like actually it. The last vocal that we have is on the second chorus to kind of punch it in a little bit more. I just have this little hook harmony that I'm kind of singing as a lead. Basically doing the exact same thing as a lead vocal, just a little bit wetter.
You played all my insecurities, enough is enough.
Just on certain phrases.
Just to stitch it back up. But I don't give a fuck, since I've given you up.
Putting that with a lead vocal, such a cool texture.
You played all my insecurities, enough is enough. Tore my heart into many pieces just to stitch it back up. Now you come around acting sorry, but I don't give a fuck, 'cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up.
And that is all of the individual elements. Maybe we didn't talk about things like I added a little crash impact for the chorus. I like layered in a clap under the snare in the chorus. But other than that, that is the full arrangement. So this has been a long one. I'm enjoying it though. Let's go ahead and let's go through. Oh, this is weird. Hold on. Let me fix this real quick. Fix that little automation blip. And let's go through and actually play it so you can hear what this sounds like from start to finish.
Yesterday I heard your favorite song. It's almost as unbearable as you are. I bet you've got the new guy singing along while you run your hand up his thigh in your car. Fool me once, fool me twice, 'cause I'll still pay the price, and it's cost me my life, so goodbye.
So long, motherfucker.
You played all my insecurities, enough is enough. Tore my heart into many pieces just to stitch it back up. Now you come around acting sorry, but I don't give a fuck, 'cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up. I don't know why I would expect you to change. I was stupid and you know all along. add me to your light to smother my flame. Ash me out and next thing I know you're gone. Fool me once, fool me twice, cause I'll still pay the price. And it's cost me my life, so goodbye.
Bye.
You played all my insecurities, enough is enough. Tore my heart into many pieces just to stitch it back up. Now you come around acting sorry, but I don't give a fuck. Cause I'm better, so much better since I've given you up.
And there you have it. That is how to make a song in the style of Taste by Sabrina Carpenter. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know there was a shit ton of information in this one. So if you're still watching, we really, really appreciate you. Again, make sure that you head over to makepopmusic.com. We have sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, choruses that go way more in detail than even this video does. And make sure that you leave a comment down below so you have a chance to possibly win one of those sample packs or preset packs or MIDI packs for free on Monday. So other than that, we'll be back next week with more content. Let us know what videos you want to see in the comments down below. We always take your advice. And then other than that, again, if you want some of these guitar presets, I'll have a link below where you can just download them. And yeah, we'll be back with more content soon. I hope you enjoyed this one. Much love. Peace.